Right now, somewhere in your brain, a chemical is being released that evolution never designed for this moment. It doesn't know the difference between a real person and a screen. It doesn't know the difference between connection and simulation. And every time you watch, you are teaching it something. What if the thing you thought was just a habit was actually rewiring how you experience pleasure itself? Let's start with the chemical. Dopamine. You've probably heard the word before, usually attached to the idea of reward. But dopamine isn't really about pleasure. It's about wanting. It's the signal that says, keep going, there's something good ahead. Your brain evolved this system for food, for connection, for survival. It was never built for content that refreshes infinitely. Here's where it gets interesting. Neuroscientist Valerie Voon at the University of Cambridge studied men who reported compulsive sexual behavior involving online content. Using brain scans, her team found heightened activity in the reward circuitry when participants viewed sexual material, activity that resembled patterns seen in substance use studies. That doesn't mean pornography is identical to a drug, but it does mean the brain can respond to novelty and anticipation in ways that echo addiction pathways. Think about that for a second. Your brain doesn't just react to what you watch, it reacts to what might come next. The scroll, the next tab, the next video. That anticipation is often more powerful than the content itself. So why does habituation happen? Why does something that once felt intense start to feel dull? This is where tolerance enters the picture. When a reward circuit gets activated over and over by the same type of stimulus, the brain often adjusts. It downregulates. It requires more to produce the same response. This isn't a moral failing. It's neurology responding to repetition. The same mechanism that makes your morning coffee less effective after months of daily use. Psychiatrist Norman Doidge, known for his work on neuroplasticity, has written about how the brain's ability to change itself, the very trait that makes learning and recovery possible, is a double-edged sword. The same plasticity that lets you learn a language or heal from injury also lets repeated patterns carve deeper grooves, making certain behaviors feel more automatic over time. Now, not every researcher agrees on how far this goes. Nicole Prouse, a neuroscientist who has studied sexual response extensively, has pushed back against the idea that pornography use should be classified as an addiction in the clinical sense. Her research found that in some cases, the brain's response to sexual images didn't match the pattern typically seen in substance addiction. This is important. Science on this topic is still evolving. Not every claim you hear online is settled fact. But here's what most researchers do agree on, regardless of where they land on the addiction debate. Frequent, escalating consumption can shift expectations. It can change what a person considers normal, exciting, or necessary for arousal. And that shift doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a body, in a relationship, in a life that has to function the next morning. Consider what happens to attention. Content built for maximum stimulation trains the brain to expect constant novelty. Simple, ordinary pleasures, a conversation, a slow moment with another person can start to feel underwhelming by comparison. This isn't unique to pornography. It's the same mechanism behind doom scrolling, behind binge watching, behind any activity engineered around an endless supply of novelty. But when the content involves sex and intimacy specifically, the effects can bleed into how a person relates to real partners. There's a term some clinicians use, arousal template. It refers to the specific patterns, scenarios, and cues a person's brain associates with sexual arousal. That template isn't fixed at birth. It's shaped by experience. And repeated exposure to a narrow, intense category of content can narrow that template further, sometimes making real, unscripted intimacy feel less stimulating by comparison. Does this happen to everyone? No. Frequency matters. Individual biology matters. Context matters. A person who watches occasionally and feels no distress is in a very different position than a person who feels increasingly unable to stop despite wanting to. And that